So I love the idea of talking about love. But there's another thing that if I was to talk on behalf of men, maybe to the naive younger men that I meet, they seem to think that lust is the only thing that men have. And that maybe men are the only people that just want to go out and get laid.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a maturation phase that men go through in life, or some of them go through, where they realize men and women are much similar in that sense. Now, of course, we can talk about, procreation, tendencies, evolution. But one of the issues I see with young guys is they seem to think they have to be who the woman wants, as in they have to signal, I want a relationship, I want to settle down, I want to take this seriously. But actually for some men, there are young women that just want to be promiscuous and have protected, but one night stands. There's almost a notion that one night stands belong to men and what men want.
Yeah.
But there are just as many women, if maybe arguably more, that want the same. And my issue is that men go out and give off these signals that are completely incorrect because they just don't understand the wants and needs of women. So if we were to look at lust between men and women, is it a 50-50 thing?
Yeah, I would really say so. I think what some men get it wrong is when they lack sex appeal. I know I talk a lot about it. Is because the moment you have sex appeal, you get to see women's raw emotions. Men without sex appeal will think that women are timid. They don't hold hands. They don't like kissing. They don't like sex. Men who lack sex appeal. The moment a man has sex appeal, he thinks women are always so horny. What's wrong with them? Like they need something. So when a man has sex appeal, he gets to see all sides of women. When he doesn't have sex appeal, he thinks that women need emotional safety before they can have sex with you. So he believes that narrative. But what you realize when you have sex appeal is a woman will go to a club, and if she's feeling herself and looking great and feeling great and she sees a sexy guy, that night she'll sleep with him. He's done nothing to make her feel emotionally safe, but she's decided she wants to sleep with him that night because he's activated something in her. So what men don't realize is that women don't have like a sex drive, they have a sex response. So when they see something that ignites their sexual desires, that's when they'll be activated. So the difference is maybe men will just wake up with an erection and they wake up ready to go. With women, they would be the same if they saw something or someone did something that would activate their sex appeal. So if you as a man haven't seen that side of women, you haven't activated her desire. And that's why you think women are these emotional beings that don't have lust. They have just as much lust as men. You just haven't activated it in her.
Here's the number one feedback I get from my very successful clients. How much money I saved them, because in one session you get the equivalent of 6 sessions somewhere else, because I will be able to identify the exact problem that you are going through and find you the solution for you to improve your love life or emotional well-being instantly. So if that's something you need, please click the link below.
For the men listening that might question their levels of sex appeal, what could they do to become more appealing sexually?
There's a couple of things. Firstly, of course, you look after yourself. Always start there.
And what does that look like?
Look, here's the thing. You as a man have to have some self-control in different areas of your life. Money, sex, women, body. Now, if you signal from your body that you have no self-control and you're just really overweight and you're just not taking care of yourself, it signals to that person that you're not going to have other admirable traits. So it just means that, doesn't mean you have to have a six-pack. It just means that when you start gaining a bit of weight, you might fast a couple of days and just get it straight again. That's all. So you basically look after yourself in that sense. Your hygiene, all of those are the typical things. But I think the second thing, which is actually really important for sex appeal, is sexual dominance. A lot of men have become really submissive sexually. And I see this a lot because I work with a lot of men that pay for OnlyFans and pay for escorts. And the number one thing that men who pay for sex have in common is they're sexually submissive. They look for a woman that will literally just take over, do everything for him, help him ejaculate, and then he'll get really attached to that girl because they attribute that great sex to her because they don't have the skills themselves. Whereas if you look at men who are sexually dominant, whoever they touch, they'll have good sex with because they take over. It's pretty much them that does the hard work. So they're like, okay, yeah, she was great, but so was her. So every girl I touch is great because I'm there. But the men with low sexual confidence, they attribute the success of the sex to the woman because they're not dominant. And what not being dominant means is they don't know how to initiate. They kind of make her initiate. They don't really know how to kind of arouse her. They kind of want her to do all the work, and they are just submissive. And that, I keep hearing that feedback where a lot of girls will say, he doesn't even initiate anymore. He just kind of wants me to do everything. He doesn't even like grab me or anything. He just wants me to do everything. So it's that submission that is really, really unattractive to a lot of women. Sexual dominance is sex appeal. And it's signaled without saying a word. Women can tell you've got sexual dominance without you doing anything. And how they can tell it is how confident you are when you're just speaking to them. Men that are a bit shy and a bit nervous and they overthink what they're about to say, that anxiety signals that they're going to probably be overthinking when they're intimate with you. But where they're just like, oh, fuck it, like, you look great, oh, your tits are huge, what have you been doing? Like, the moment they act like that, it signals that they don't have anxiety. When we realize that you don't have anxiety, unconsciously we think, then you probably don't have performance anxiety. So unconsciously we think you're probably going to be great. But when you signal anxiety, she translates it unconsciously sexually.
I think there's definitely a breakdown where there's a few things to unpackage there. One, I think that maybe, and I'm not an expert, just an observer. Young people maybe are petrified, young boys, to talk to women. And it's not just the rejection. I think that potentially there was even an influencer this week that I admire that did a video that an older man complimented her. And she said, that's gross. Or she said, it's really weird. And I thought that old guy could have seen a beautiful young woman and just said, do you know what, love? You look beautiful. And that, you know, it could have been something he used to say to his wife. It could have been something that, you know, he hasn't been able to express. And she went and made a reel about it. I thought that's really sad because young men are going to see that and think they can't compliment a woman. You know, like, my thing is when I've had a few beers, I'll compliment guys. I'll look at a guy and I'll be like, mate, you're a good looking bloke. And they'll be like, you gay? I'm like, no, I just feel like you need to hear it in case you haven't heard it. I'll ask him if they used to play rugby and if they said no, I'll say it's wasted. Could have made a good rugby player out of you. There's something nice to say nice things to other people. And I feel like maybe the compliments for a start don't come. Then there's the banter. One of my friends who was a bit of a short king, he used to banter women in a way where on a night out, he'd go, oh, you're not going out dressed like that, are you? And they'd be like, what's wrong with what? He'd go, no, there's nothing wrong. And they'd be like, are you serious? He'd go, no, I'm only joking. But it would let their guard down. They would have a laugh. They'd be like, oh, you're such a prick. And it means that there'd be some cohesion. They'd be able to talk. And even like you say, he wasn't anxious.
No anxiety. The only thing you need to signal to a woman is you don't have anxiety. The moment she sees anxiety in you, she translates it intimately. And this is unconscious. She doesn't even know it. She'll say something like, I think he's just a bit too nice, or he's a bit too respectful. Or they don't know how to articulate this thought. But the signal is like, look, the reason why you might have had a lot of success with women is because you can compliment men and women equally. Chances are you probably can compliment people you're not attracted to. It's as simple as that. So complimenting people doesn't bring out anxiety in you because you're just stating a fact. What men with anxiety, what they do is like, okay, they put all of their kind of self-esteem on her reaction to their compliment. So they don't get into the habit of just neutralizing compliments, men, women, people you're attracted to, not attracted to. They don't see it as statements. They see it as like, this is their one shot. So they come over to you and they give you a compliment, but you can tell they've been rehearsing it in their head. They haven't done this very often. They're anxious. And that anxiety is what feels creepy. But when it's anxiety-free and it's like, oh, you look great, have a great day. And that's it. Even if he was an old man, I'd probably be like, oh, he's so silly, but then carry on. But when he's like shaking or he's really nervous to come say it to me, I'm like, you're making this weird. You're thinking it more than I am. You've made this weird. So I would say the underlying tone of anxiety reduces sex appeal.
We spoke a bit, or you mentioned the word incel before. We've got young people that now just don't communicate like maybe they used to. I know in my generation, you'd go drink a bottle of Strongbow, go hang out in a park, but you would say dumb stuff, do dumb stuff. You'd have a snog with someone, next day go, did I snog that person or whatever it was? There was all of that happening. The internet was just coming into account. There weren't forums, there weren't OnlyFans. One of my big kind of double standards, I'd say, with OnlyFans is there's a lot of talk online about misogyny. And I don't really even understand too much about it. But we don't talk enough about potential young, very attractive women manipulating young men. And the people that are signing up, I don't know this objectively, but I imagine most of the men signing up for OnlyFans are the very men that need to improve their social skills, the very men that need to deal on their anxiety, the very men that need to start giving out compliments. The very cohort of young men I think we should be helping are just spending $12.99 or whatever it is a month on OnlyFans. And there is definitely a cross-manipulation of the very attractive young women in the genetic lottery.
Absolutely.
And we're like, well, where's the double standard? Are we going to spend any government money on stopping them from manipulating these?
You know what? I didn't get a chance to do this, but I was going to go to Oxford and discuss the legalization of sex work. And the people who are pro-sex workers being legalized are kind of pitching it like these poor sex workers, they're just trying to make money. They just want to have a regular job. Like she's innocent. And she's just this woman that's just like this innocent woman who is just trying to make a buck. And why are we stigmatizing the sex worker? I work with a lot of sex workers and people who pay for sex. Both of them have an antisocial personality disorder. Absolutely. Women that charge men for sex absolutely develop a narcissism. There's no exception to this rule. Even if she then finds Jesus, it's not going to work. The reason being is the moment you can disassociate intimacy and sex with humanizing the human being and just seeing them as an ATM, you have to develop some psychopathy with that. You have to be able to disassociate that person's emotions and feelings just for your own gain. You're using them as a device to kind of suit your needs. And these girls don't care if he's married. They don't care if he's got kids. They don't care if he's falling in love with her. The more he loves her, the more she can manipulate him. So somehow we've kind of marketed it like sex workers are these feminists and they're really strong and they're doing really great. But those women have real troubles with ever being non-transactional. And that includes even with their own children, even with their partners that they finally be with, even with their friends. They are so used to manipulating, lying, and receiving that they don't have the skill of giving anymore. And they don't have the skill of just loving anymore. So it kills something in them. So I don't think that this concept that these sex workers are so empowering and the men are the sleazeballs is actually correct. I think they're both developing a disorder as they're continuing down this dark rabbit hole.
Is it Louise Perry, who I think had a conversation with Chris?
Yeah, she's great.
She said about sex workers that she's worked with or spoken to, they need to spend the money they earn to make it worth it in their mind. So I actually do something similar, not with sex work.
Yeah.
But say I do like a really long week at work or I do a big event and it wipes the shit out of me. The next day I'm like, I need an expensive meal out or I'm going to go watch shopping or I'm going to do something so that while I'm knackered and thinking, cool, that was hard work, I'm like, I got a watch out of it.
Amazing.
Whereas potentially some sex workers will need that validation all the time. And we might think that they're squirreling away money and saving it and putting it into an interest savings account for their future. But that's not the reality. Because if you do some things on a weeknight that could be, rather nefarious, whatever, and you don't do anything with the money, it doesn't feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
So you need to buy the handbags, the shoes, whatever it is. But then that means that you have high earning, high spending. So by the time you get to a position where maybe you do want to retire, you do want to stop doing it, you're kind of caught in this trap. Whereas for us, I'm sure that even if all our income is put into our pension, that after a certain point in time, we'd be like, I don't know if this is worth it because I'm not getting to how many of the goods. So it's not just as simple as earning good with these people.
Well, it's because their values. What I mean by this is kind of like drug dealers and sex workers. They actually make a really great couple. I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying it as in their value system is very similar. Both of them value money over safety, both of them. And so what ends up happening is they got these materialistic values where they're constantly, buying things out of what they're making because buying things means more than having true connections. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's how their brain works. So as a result, they don't have these skill set of valuing money because they never really did it properly. They didn't actually earn it with hard work, effort, grind, and they didn't have a bigger purpose in mind. They weren't thinking, I've got to feed my family or my kids. This usually just because it's quick and easy these days, not for all sex workers, but I'm talking more about the privileged sex workers. But what my experience with working with sex workers is they had developed a distaste towards spending their own money. No matter how much money they make, they'll always find a man that will be able to pay bills here, there, and everywhere because they kind of hoard their own money. They develop a greed with their own money that is hard to explain, especially in this day and age. No matter what they have in the bank account, they will still be able to find somebody, some old guy in India or someone in Ghana that will pay their flights rather than just spend their own money. So they have this weird relationship with money that they worship it, but they can't spend their own. They kind of utilize men as much as possible. And and then what I really see with sex workers is they only come out of the profession when they raise a daughter old enough to take over. So what will happen is they'll have like an 18-year-old daughter and then I say, okay, you need to start because, your stepdad, I'm going to start filing for divorce soon. So you need to make sure that you bring in, and then that girl will then bring in a sugar daddy for the both of them. And it becomes a cycle.
Like you say, it's not just potentially horny men. There are men that sometimes you need feedback in life to have course correction. In fact, I think you need some kind of psychological trauma to make any positive action. In weight loss, it would have been your button in your jeans pops off or your trousers rip or, some person in a white van calls you a fatty, whatever it is.
Something.
You need that pain to have change. And I think that men, if they're not getting access to women, sex or anything, that should be a wake-up call that they need to sort themselves out. But if they can just say, do you know what, for 50 quid, I can go to Amsterdam or whatever, we're almost bypassing that system where they don't have to actually experience the trauma to make the change.
Exactly.
So not only on one side, not to say this is all the sex workers are bad, far from it, But this is also negative for the men that are involved.
Massive, more so for the men. The women still get to have a nice life. They still, if they want to opt out of it, I find that sex workers can still opt out at some stage in their life. Men who pay for sex, they can't opt out of it. They literally cannot opt out once. And I always recommend girls, like, be careful if you start being with a man who's really into sex workers, like falls in love with them and stuff. It's a one-way street. And the reason it's a one-way street is that they've created a dynamic where they don't have natural sexual confidence anymore. Their sexual confidence comes from the fact that when men are paying for sex, what they're really trying to do is avoid feedback. Because real feedback, like let's say, for example, if we gain weight or if you lose your erection or you lose your arousal, whatever it is, your wife might say to you, babe, what's been going on? Like, are you okay? Like, come on. Like, they give you some feedback. Like, and then you're like, shit, maybe I should eat more protein. I should do something. You work a little, oh, maybe I shouldn't, masturbate before sex because it's going to upset her. You get some feedback, so you redirect and you improve your sexual performance. What men who pay for sex do is never get feedback because the girl is paid to pretend she likes it. So because they don't get sexual feedback, they can't make sexual improvements. And as a result, they can't increase their sexual confidence, which again makes them anxious about going to real women. So they stay in that loop of just paying for it.